Hey guys, it's Jay. So I saw this VR going around that was started by Simply Han, sharing our Loveliest decks. And so I thought I would do a VR and share some of mine with you. So the first prompt, there's 8 altogether. I'm going to try to make this succinct because I only have so much time at the moment. But the first prompt is the Heartthrob Deck, which deck swept me off my feet at first sight, and I actually have a rather recent one that came into my collection this year, and that is the Lonely Dreamer Tarot. So I got this, I think I ordered it right after Christmas with a little bit of Christmas money, because I'd been eyeing it and I thought it would pair with an Oracle deck that I had really nicely, and I was just curious about it. I wound up deciding I don't really like pairing it with that Oracle deck, and I might not like pairing anything with that Oracle deck, but I really fell in love with this, like, right away. I don't know, I mean, first of all, I love the backs. I just think this is really gorgeous. And then the artwork has that dreamy, moody kind of feeling from, what's the artist's name? Doula Oracle, I think. And it's kind of funny. I want to do like some kind of witchy chat catch up or something like that. But in a class I took online recently, unrelated specifically to tarot, but it was about art and sort of spiritual, psycho-spiritual stuff. This artist was mentioned a couple times. And yeah, I don't know, I just kind of synced in with this deck right away. I find it's a very personal reader for me. And I've just had really beautiful connection with it. So swept me off my feet at first sight. I wasn't sure when I ordered it, but as soon as I met it in person, I was like, oh my gosh. How is this not higher on my wish list leading up to this? There's just something about the play of colors, the dreamy feel, the way that the creator chose the images for the different cards, or overlaid, to illustrate a little further which card it was, that I don't know, really connect with. I like this Queen of Pentacles a lot too. But that is my first pick. Love at first sight. It's definitely this deck. I don't know. I've thought of doing a deeper video about it because I was just so into it and obsessed. It's on that nice linen cardstock also, which I do really enjoy shuffling. It just shuffles beautifully. Standard size, so very comfortable for my hands. And I just look forward to continuing to work with this one. It definitely wants to do deep, more psychological work from what I've gathered. And it's so pretty. Like, even just fanning it and looking at the colors. I don't know. I'd be curious to know anyone else that has this deck, what your thoughts are. The next deck is the Hopeless Romantic, and I have to say I don't really have decks that I generally find romantic except for this one. This is the one deck that I actually got last February because I was like, oh, I don't know, I'm craving kind of romantic deck, and this just felt like it. And that's the Zerner Farber. Of course, we have 7 of Hearts at the bottom. This is the newest edition. It's very petite, and I'm kind of grateful for that. It is a cute, tiny deck. There's something very sweet about it. And the other thing that I don't think I even knew when I initially got it is that the artist, the woman that created this, her and her husband kind of worked together on these things. He did the guidebook, as far as I understand it, which is a pretty extensive guidebook. There's some things in there where I feel it's like an interesting take on the cards. It's definitely different a little. For the most part, like the root is the same. It's just the way he explains is very interesting. And I just find it to be dreamy and romantic. It's fabric collage. The cup suit is the suit of hearts. And even just the imagery throughout the cards has this kind of dreamy, romantic feel to it. And I really love it. I haven't connected as deeply. Like when I first got it, there was like some sort of magnetic repelling, and I was so frustrated because aesthetically I love it, but at the time I don't think I was quite ready for the energy of it, perhaps. I'm not sure how to put it, but I pulled it out recently because, long story short, I wound up with 2 copies kind of accidentally, and I gave my extra copy to my best friend, and she really has enjoyed it. She's learning, and she's like superseding. She's going to be reading so fluently in like the quickest amount of time, but it made me pull out my copy and be like, hey, I really want to connect with it. I've had it, I haven't even put it away since I got it. I kept it on my altar, just tucked away. I don't know, I guess marinating in energy, because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want to put it away. It didn't want to be put away, but I just wasn't ready to work with it. But I have pulled with it since, and I think what I'm going to do is probably like my go-to sort of deck interview spread. I also, for a mass market deck, having this nice matte gold gilding. The backs could be cooler, but I like the purple. But yeah, I think I want to do some kind of reconnecting with this deck. And February really feels like when this deck starts to call to me, I think. And now I feel more connected with it, even just looking at the images and thumbing through it the past week or two and doing like little casual readings. But yeah, that's the Zerner Farber, and that is the Hopeless Romantic deck. It just feels steeped in some kind of romantic, loving energy, and I think it really shines from when I've pulled cards in relationship and self-love type readings. That's when I have been like, yeah, I definitely can see tapping into this, but I want to go a little deeper with her, so we'll see. I'm gonna have to wrap this up later or off screen because this is gonna be a whole thing. Oh my gosh. Okay, so now we're on the Soulmate deck, and this is one I struggled with. There's 2 prompts that are difficult for me in this tag, and the Soulmate deck was one of them because I kind of have more than one. But for this one, I went with Tarot of the Huntress because even when Kara was coming out with this, I was like, man, this is the deck I have been longing for, is one to connect with Artemis or Huntress goddess energy. It's on beautiful linen cardstock, so it shuffles beautifully, and I have a very deep emotional connection with this from the work that I did. When I got this deck, I worked with it almost exclusively for like more than a month, which is unusual for me. And then I continued working with it, sometimes with other decks in play in my practice, but for like a solid 3 months, I think it was. I was doing a lot of really intentional, focused work with this deck, and it's gorgeous. I mean, the artwork is timeless. The readings I've gotten with this have been always just so on point, and speaking to me on a deeper level kind of thing. And with this deck and another one I'll mention also by the same creator, the added layer of mythology oftentimes just really profoundly adds to a reading. And so I have a very deep connection with this deck, and it's also the kind that is only going to continue to grow. Being able to have a deck, I love this card so much. Being able to work with a deck that connects with Artemis and features her so beautifully, so classically. It just really took my practice to a place that I'd been wanting to go but didn't have the right tool to get there, I guess. But this has been it for me. I do think, I'm not sure because I haven't checked in a while, the second edition of this deck, there might still be some copies. There were a few changes. The backs are different and a few of the cards are different, just to have a new flavor a little bit going on with the new edition. But same beautiful energy, I'm sure. I just adore this deck. I really wouldn't want to be without it, which is going to segue into another prompt later. But I picked it as Soulmate Deck because it was the thing I was longing for, but didn't quite know how to define until I saw it. And I think there's something soulmatey about that. All the aces are animals. If you've seen any of my videos, like where I've gone over decks, this one is almost in everything, but I can't help it. I love this deck so much. So that is my Soulmate Deck, Tarot of the Huntress. Really beautiful found art deck. Great shuffler with the linen cardstock, which I think has possibly become my favorite just because it shuffles so great. I mean, yeah. Tarot of the Huntress, Soulmate Deck. So let's move on to the Self-Love Deck. And I'm going to go with the most recent one that has been my Self-Love Deck, because there's probably one or two other ones I could have picked. But there's one that stands out most recently, and that is the Death Doula Oracle. So this one is going to be coming up in a couple videos. I'm just about done editing my first video about grief work and things that kind of carried me through grief. I don't know, even with the other decks that I kind of consider good self-care check-in type decks, if they could top this because of a few things. The keywords, first of all, and then also the guidebook. Those are the two reasons. There's something about the abstraction of images that really, I thought wouldn't really work for me, to be honest with you, seeing it online. And when I first got the deck, I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. But there's something about these abstract images that 9 times out of 10 does tap into the energy of that keyword so beautifully and in such a profound way that so many times I'll have pulled a card and sort of intuitively, without even looking at the guidebook, have a very specific sense of what it's referencing, and then I wind up looking at the guidebook, and what do you know, it's on point. So there's something about the energetic resonance of these. But as the self-love, self-care deck, the reason I love it is because I don't really love decks that are all just sugar. I want some spice. I want it to tell me that there's work I have to do. I want it to call me out a little bit here and there. But what makes this really a self-care deck for me is the guidebook, because when I need a grounding practice, this deck, how to explain? It just does the thing, because for most of the cards, you get referenced to other pages in the back of the book, which is actually the thicker part of what's in here. And there's all kinds of rituals, practices, and meditations. So it really helps me slow down and actually do a practice, do a ritual, do an exercise, or even a specific journaling. And it always winds up being the kind of thing that I need, especially when I'm in a place that I know I need to connect with myself and practice self-care. There was a reading recently I did, it might have been the most recent with this deck, where I just was having a really hard time that day accomplishing what I thought would be easy to accomplish that day. And I just was not on the vibe, and I don't know what was going on, but I can't remember exactly which card it was that I pulled. Unprocessed, I'm pretty sure. I'd have to flip through and find it. But my immediate thought seeing it was like, yeah, okay, I can't I'm like struggling to do this thing because there's some unprocessed energy in my physical body. And then the tarot cards I pulled confirm that. And then I go look in the guidebook, and that's literally what it's about, is there's the need to process emotions physically to be able to get the flow going. And that was very much true. And I took the guidance of that. I did a nice 10-15 minute active stretching routine, and that really got me out of that slump. So that's why this is my go-to self-care deck when I don't exactly know what it is that is kind of limiting me or blocking me emotionally or even practically. This deck has just also in my grief work really helped me navigate very difficult things and brought me back to a place of self-love, I would say. So that is my self-love deck, Death Doula. I'm so glad I have this one. And I really appreciate what the creator did with this because it feels pretty unique. So the next prompt is the Power Couple Combo, my favorite tarot and oracle deck pairing, and why I have so many pairings because I'm kind of big on pairings. That's something I really love is pairing decks, to be honest. It's a bit of a problem, but my recent Power Couple combo has been Tarot of Persephone's Garden and the Divine Nature Oracle. So with Tarot of Persephone's Garden, this is also a deck created by Kara Small. This is the Chthonic edition. Again, it's a found art deck, and it's in honor of Persephone in her dark half, more so. Because she did have the original edition, which was the light half of the year. But I got this one when she came out with it before I even knew that I was going to end up working with Persephone. Just because I wanted to get it just in case, and I knew she wasn't planning on printing anymore. And I'm really glad I did because within short order, working with Persephone has become the thing that I am doing in my practice now. That's a whole long story. But I had this deck for months, and I knew I was going to be working with her, but the time wasn't ready yet. And when I felt that we were circling that part of that descent, I didn't really feel like I had an oracle deck that matched the energy and the direction that I was being sort of pulled in with Persephone's energies. So I went on an exploration, and I kind of got pulled back to a deck that I had seen, I'd been interested in, but I hadn't really given a ton of thought to, even though it was aesthetically pretty. I just didn't have an idea of what I'd use it for, and I'm trying to be very intentional in this year, especially to just be mindful that if I'm getting a deck that there has to be a good reason. But the Divine Nature Oracle just pairs so beautifully with it. I'll just show you some of the cards and then I'll show you them paired. Not only in the artwork, but the themes. And what I like about this one in particular is it's not like it's exclusively shadow work. There's empowerment in these cards. And that's sort of the intention of this deck. And I just thought a lot of the cards really lined up, like Walk the Flower Path. There's a card for Dance and Twirl and Hold Your Ground and Listen to Your Muse, Answer the Call. There's just a certain energy about this deck that really felt like the right energy, and so I took the chance and got it. And absolutely, it has been the right pairing. I hadn't really pulled out and worked with Tarot of Persephone's Garden until I got this oracle, because I felt like, I don't know, there were other decks that I was working with Persephone energy, and it wasn't until I had this combo that I was like, yes, the messages I need to hear are going to come through clearly. And I've done a couple readings with them now. The first reading, I actually have a deck diary that I might put out. I'm still debating. But it was such a profound reading and sort of set the stage for the kind of work that I need to focus on at this moment. And the way that these decks synced up and worked together in a reading just felt exactly what I needed. I'm going to zoom you in a little bit, actually. Hold on, it's better. You're going to have to forgive me for the lighting because it's just not the best right now, but it's what I'm working with. But yeah, they pair beautifully aesthetically, but also in messages and in energy. And I really look forward to continuing to work with these. I sort of understand the path that we're on at this point, so kind of leaning into that. And enjoying the process of it. And while this pairs with a few different things, it just feels like these two are meant to work together for me. So that is why I have them as the power couple. Own your power, Queen of Cups and Judgment. Okay, coming for me. Because these cards have come up. But there's just a lovely energy between them. And I like that even though I'm at the moment working with the descent energy of Persephone, this deck is more than that. It's the descent and then the rise, I guess is how I would describe it. It's the going deep and it's the rising up from the depths and really recognizing what that's all about. And pairing it with Tarot of Persephone's Garden, it just feels like they work in a synergistic way to deliver messages so far. That, like I said, they just really feel like the messages that needed to come through, and these were the lenses through which to find them. There's also ties, little moments of ties in the artwork to this, or even the guidebook, where things between looking at the mythology of certain figures that show up in Tarot's Persephone's Garden will tie into something that is referenced in the guidebook or the message of something written in the guidebook. And it just has very much synced up in that powerful way that I love so much about deck pairings. So this is most definitely my power couple at the moment. I'm really enjoying working with them. So yeah, I will have probably a kind of walkthrough of this deck, an initial walkthrough that I'll post at some point, and then we'll see if I decide I want to post the deck diary I did for the full spread I did when I first did a reading with these two. Because it was just really neat to see how they synced up. And there was a lot of synchronicities around that reading. But yeah, I will leave it there. That is my power couple pairing that I am loving right now. And that is generously giving me messages I need to hear. Okay, so the next prompt is the Secret Admirer deck. A deck I don't use often, but secretly adore. There's a couple I could have pulled for this, but for whatever reason, the one that came to mind first is this deck. Oh, I have to zoom you out. Hold on. Lucid Dreams Tarot. So this was actually the first deck I got when I got back into tarot after like a couple years where I just wasn't all that dedicated. I would pull cards now and again from a particular deck, but that was kind of all I was doing. I didn't have a dedicated practice. I wasn't really journaling readings much. And this was a deck I got because I felt like I wanted something that was really beautiful, that was different than the aesthetics I was used to, but also had keywords, because I kind of had to dig back into what cards meant and felt like it would be helpful to have a deck that just had keywords on it, but also artwork that I really loved. I think the reason why this has become a secret admirer deck, even though I adore the artwork, is that I have gotten really comfortable with the cards where I don't feel I need keywords, and to some extent, I kind of don't want them anymore. And I would absolutely love to see if at some point Saint Soleil, the company that makes this deck, if they at some point released this without keywords and like the graduate edition, so to speak, and just had this beautiful artwork and beautiful production quality. I mean, it has these gorgeous matte gold gilding that never wears off, basically. Beautiful backs. But I love this deck. I love the imagery. Like, this is one of the most beautiful 10 of Cups. And on top of it, I also really love the guidebook. It's actually, like, as a beginner deck, it's pricey. You can get, obviously, keyword decks, mass market decks that are a lot less than this, but the production quality of this, of course, is beautiful. It has all the gilding and foiling, but also this guidebook is really great. There's been an occasion or two where I've found a typo, but other than that, it's a really beautiful reference book. And then also in the beginning, where it sort of is walking you through how to work with the cards or the numerology, is just, if I were to only have one deck as a beginner, it would still be this one if I were to go back in time and do things over. But I just don't work with it much, I guess because of the keywords, but I want to work with it more just because I love it. I love the artwork. I love this chariot. Even though it's not an active chariot, but there's something about the determination and being at the pinnacle of determination, even though the horses are kind of chilling, where it just gives me that sense of forceful determination. So I don't know. I mean, it's also beautiful in a spread. I've used it to read for others because, you know, I guess even though it was family, I was like a little nervous. I didn't want to use a deck. This was like last summer, so I'm a little more comfortable now, but I didn't want to use a deck that was like gonna make me blank real hard, and having the sort of training wheels of keywords felt like a safe bet. But when I wound up working with it, I didn't feel the need to use it, which was really nice. But it gave beautiful readings the 2 or 3 times that I did read with this for others, and I really want to work with it for myself. I mean, I really adore the artwork, so I admire this. It's also very romantic. It's got these like pinky purpley hues. There's another edition that has it's sort of like a warm linen tone to the cardstock instead of black. That's also very beautiful, and the keywords are a little less, you know, in your face in that one. Look at this Fool card. Like, I love that it's an RWS, like a very RWS deck. It gives you all those same energies very clearly, even for a beginner, but it still does its own thing. Like, even the Magician card, look at this. It's just a very cool magician, but I want it like this. I just want it where the images are big and the keywords aren't there. So I don't know. I think I'll work with it and try to ignore the keywords. I'm gonna have to try that. The Devil card, like, it's unique, but it's exactly that energy. And with the chains and that foiling, like, and also I really love that it's got the elements and zodiacs or planetary associations. I also really love that. So, Secret Admirer, absolutely gorgeous deck, very romantic deck. I guess that's also why this one came to mind, because it just, the imagery and the artwork has a very beautiful, romantic, rosy hue to it in much of the cards, or very ethereal kind of feel to it, and I really adore it. So this is my Secret Crush deck. Also, funny story with this deck. It's gonna wind up long, I'm sorry, but I have to tell this story. At one point I was hanging out and I said to the person I was with, hey, ask me any question. I want to pull a card, whatever question you want to ask, like, just ask me, because I was shuffling with this deck. This is earlier on when I had it, and the question they told me to ask I thought was so silly, but I was like, whatever. And they told me to ask the deck what its favorite card was. So I figured, whatever, I'll humor it, see what happens. I ask the question, I pull a card, and I kid you not, it was the Sun card. And it was the funniest thing, because of course the backs of the cards, very solar, the company, Saint Soleil, guidebook, very solar. So that was just really funny, that little moment. So it's a beautiful reader. It's just my favorite deck that I don't use that much. I think because I get, for my journaling practice especially, I want the challenge of working with decks that deviate from RWS. I think that's part of it too. But I do think if there was an edition of this that didn't have keywords, I would probably work with it more. Because if I were to pick like what my favorite RWS clone type deck would be, it would probably be this. But just imagine like if this image filled the card more, you know? I still like the black border actually, but like if it filled the card, if you didn't have the keywords, I don't know. That would just be so cool. Anyway, that's my deck crush. Next prompt is the Forever Love deck. If I could only keep one deck, which would it be? Now, of course, in practical real life stuff, this is an impossible question, but for the purposes of a tag, if I were to only keep one deck, which would it be? It's going to surprise people because I don't think I've showed this one on the channel. Are you ready for it? The Fountain Tarot. This is a mass market copy, but the indie was my first tarot deck, period. I hadn't even really ever been all that interested in tarot, or just wasn't even really aware of it. But I think when the creators were either first released the deck or maybe even in the creation of it, I somehow saw it on Instagram and I was just really captivated by the artwork. And I got the deck and have been in love with it ever since. I've seen zodiac tags where a lot of fellow Cancerians also love this deck. Maybe it is the slightly cooler tone imagery of the cards. But I adore this deck and have the most history with it. It's the deck that if I feel a very personal need to get answers, that I will turn to. I've turned to in times of complete emotional disarray or whatnot. And it gives me the most beautiful readings and messages that I need to hear at the time. It's a deck that has also, I want to say, how do I put it? At times it's protected me because it's given me heads up about things. And I just, even though last year I didn't work with it much because I was learning other decks, I've turned back to this one a lot here and there when I just need clear answers about things that I can trust and I don't have to question sort of the energy or the message I'm getting because I just know this deck. I love this High Priestess. This Tower card, like I can hear it. I don't know how else to describe that, but I can hear it on a very emotional level. The representations of the cards are these beautiful oil paintings. The play of light is very big in them. Like there's a lightness in the Queen of Wands and then the heaviness of the Knight of Swords, or Nine of Swords. And an openness and lightness with the Fool. Like I don't know. If I could only keep one deck, even though I said if I were to start all over and need a first deck to learn on, it would be Lucid Dreams. If I could only keep one deck, it would still probably be Fountain Tarot. Because while it was a little bit of a challenge to learn on in some ways, in other ways it really wasn't. And especially now that I've kind of gotten a lot further in my journey of tarot and learning the cards and the meanings, I just love the way that the energies are depicted here. I love this star card. It's like being lifted out of heaviness and rising even out of the subconscious into illumination and holding on to hope. It like just gives me all of the energies. And the more I learn about tarot, the more I go, oh, this death card also, that transition state. I just can't explain how much I love it. Opening a box of wisdom with the Hierophant. This devil card with them almost being materially sucked in to this force. I don't know. I really love this deck. I'm always going to love this deck. Like I said, this is a mass market edition because my initial indie edition I was not as precious with, and I kind of leave it only for when I'm doing special readings and working with it. I have this copy kind of out. It's the copy I use to read for others if I'm doing a reading for others and want to use this deck. And it's the copy that sometimes if I just want to grab a deck and sort of play out some spreads and see how I like them, or if I want to change any positions or add anything or anything like that, this is one of those decks that I'll reach for and just kind of lay out cards, see how I like it, that sort of a deal. So that is my forever love. And the last prompt is the love letter card. So the card I'm picking for this is from Tarot of the Witch's Garden, is the Queen of Wands, because this both feels like a love letter to myself and some special people in my life and beyond, perhaps. This is the actual card that I keep on my altar, and I have for just about the whole of the past year. In spring, it will probably be a good year that this card's just been sitting up there, because for me, the Queen of Wands is not just what I aspire to be, but what I feel called to embody in my highest good. And I feel that with my friends as well. The idea of stepping into your own self-assurance and being empowered to such a degree where you still are deeply in touch with your intuition and your instinct, but you are showing up in the world and blazing bright through it and really holding your fire and being comfortable and able to authentically exist in the world and not let anyone compromise that. The energy of Queen of Wands has been an absolute love letter to me, and it's a love letter I would love to send a lot of people I love to be authentically yourself and to be confident and assured in that and comfortably seated into that. I think in all ways, the various queens throughout the deck have their different strengths and hold their boundaries in different ways. But what I love about the Queen of Wands is that she maintains that warmth and fierceness, but it's from a place of total passion and creativity and being tapped in to that flow of both instinct and intuition, spirit and drive, and just really embodying and being comfortable authentically showing up in the world. And I think in her highest form, when she is most self-actualized, she can do so without having any concerns of how others might react to it poorly, because she doesn't need the approval. So that's why I picked this card. It's a card that I could have picked from many decks, but I love this depiction of her. I love holding the sunflower and kind of cradling her flame the way that she is, and just her posture, kind of seated into her authority. Of course, we have the black cat. Can't forget that. I just love the energy of this particular depiction. And something I love about Tarot of the Witch's Garden is through all the elemental suits, the way that the colors really evoke that element. So the orangey glow of the background, and then the sunflower being illuminated, and then her crown of fire. I just love all of those details. And the combination of sensuality and authority. So that is my love letter card. And that is my VR to the Loveliest decks. Thank you to Simply Han for creating it. It's a super fun VR. I hope more people do it. I've enjoyed watching other people's, and I hope you have a lovely day, evening, or whatever it is by you, and I will catch you in the next one.